Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Lunar Counseling's podcast. I am with the amazing David Martin. I've had the privilege of working with David for the past year now, and he's just been awesome. David is an LMFT based in Florida. His work is rooted in systemic trauma approaches that use each person within the context of their relationships, environments, and life story. He does individuals, couples, family therapy, and uses EMDR for trauma, anxiety, and emotional regulation. He addresses the entire family system to help make lasting change and growth from improving relationships and stronger connections with improving other communication and greater emotional balance. And he has extensive experience doing all these. He's been in the field for over 15 years and he's just amazing. And he has a really great take on addictions, autism, and all things related to trauma. So let's dive right in and welcome David. So glad to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for the nice platitudes and everything. That's really great. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, these are the stuff I get to work with, but I always wanted to get to know you a little bit better. So what drove you to being a therapist?
Well, long story short, I think all of us kind of get into this profession because we all have our stuff growing up, right? And we want to, I think it's part of the healing process and kind of like wishing that it's part of a way to heal our own stuff, our own wounds growing up. So, I've always wanted to help people, you know what I mean?
Mm.
But what brought me to doing psychotherapy was when my undergraduate's in music of all things, right? So
So
thank you. And I decided a few years in that education was not going to be my thing because, I had friends that were in music and I mean, because the only way to honestly make money unless you make it big as a performer is to teach, right? So
yeah.
I grew up in a very small rural town, southwestern PA called Connellsville, Pennsylvania. I was a music major and I got a scholarship. I was a voice major and a piano secondary major for that. I decided I didn't want to do music because I had friends that were in music and I saw them trying to get jobs and doing long-term subbing for like 6, 7, 8 years before they get a job. And I'm like, I don't see it being a sustainable thing. So, of course I graduated in music and then I'm like, okay, now what am I going to do now? Because I'm not going to be a teacher. So let's see what I can get into. So I started working with special needs kids right out of college. So I did a lot of group homework with kids that pretty heavily duty challenged as far as like dual diagnosis. So most of them had diagnosis of mental retardation, and usually they had an accompanying diagnosis like autism, or some of them had heavy duty mental health diagnosis like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia
Wow.
and conduct disorder and things like that. So I started doing that and I just fell in love with it. I got into some other areas like social work and case management and working with the aging population. And I was a mental retardation case manager for quite a number of years. About 15 years in, I'm like, I need to do something different because I kind of tapped out as far as like what I can do to make a living. I need to do something different. One of the other reasons why I do addiction work is that I am in recovery from alcohol. So I haven't had a drink since October 30th of 2006. And
Oh,
so
wow, that's amazing.
thank you. And so I've kind of fell in love with the idea of like, well, how can I help other addicts and other alcoholics, right? I'm like, well, why not? I need to increase my career capabilities and be able to support myself. Why not go to school to be a therapist? I looked at some different programs and I decided to go back to my old alma mater, Seton Hill University in
Okay.
Greensburg, Pennsylvania. And they had a marriage and family therapy program that was probably at that point, maybe 4 or 5 years in, so I'm like, "Why not do that?" Like, "Let's do marriage and family therapy. I can work with all populations. Let's do it." So, long story short, I went back to grad school in 2017, and like 15 years after my undergraduate graduation, and got on a 3-year track there and got my master's in marriage and family therapy from Seton Hill. And incidentally, that program folded, unfortunately. It was so sad when it did, probably about 3 years ago. Uh, it just wasn't a viable program there anymore. I think they switched more to doing more psychotherapy, mental health counseling focus versus marriage and family therapy. But
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I landed with that, as far as kind of what brought me to wanting to do therapy.
That is so cool. And it's really interesting that you said like you grew up in what like southwestern Pennsylvania. I am
Hmm.
currently in Western PA. I'm like by
Right.
Pittsburgh.
I didn't realize you were on the west side. Where at in southwestern PA?
So I'm about an hour north of Pittsburgh.
Okay, so you're
Yeah.
like Cranberry Township area then, around there?
Do you know Katanning?
Oh my goodness, yes. My aunt and uncle, they lived in Katanning, God rest their soul. Like, yeah, they lived in Katanning all their most of their, like, later adult life. My aunt was a school teacher in Katanning School District. I can't remember the name of it, and my
Yeah.
uncle worked for, I think it was Allegheny Power back then, or West
Oh,
Penn
wow.
Power back then. So, yeah, it's amazing. Katanning's great. It's a
Yeah.
great town, you know?
Yeah, it's has its moments.
Yeah, for sure, but it still has that small town feel to it,
Oh yeah.
and it's great.
But yeah, and like it's interesting that you mentioned Seton Hill because Hill definitely had the reputation of being for marriage and family. Like if you wanted to get marriage and family, like that was the
Yep,
place where
yep,
you went.
yep.
And that's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so sad that that program went under. I think enrollment was really down for that program, but they had some fabulous professors there that I'm so grateful that I'm gonna say their name. So Rebecca Harvey, she was the chair then, and DeMarcus Clark was there, and they brought some heavy hitters in to teach that program. And Dr. Susan Cooley was there. She had really gotten the program up off the ground right before I got there and had faded out and went out to do her own thing again. But I really learned a lot about how family systems works from that program because,
Yeah.
how can the family not have an impact on you as a person, right? It's a
Right.
huge
Exactly.
component. It's a huge component. And that's why I'm so glad that I did marriage and family therapy because it just kind of expanded everything out to where I'm able to work with the individuals that I work with. And then I'm able to look at the full family context that way. And it's just, again, that's such a huge component that is often missed. Not to discredit the other practitioners, right? The other
Yeah.
practitioners, not to discredit social workers and professional counselors, right? But it's such a wonderful facet of it. You know what I mean? To study that.
It really is. Yeah. Like I did family based in the past and like going into
Hmm.
the home and like learning all the things. Like you're right. But the family is the biggest essentially deciding factor of whether or not something becomes a trauma or just becomes something hard that you went through. Like again, like the supportive family that can help you get through the thing doesn't necessarily turn into like a trauma response. And it just
Hmm.
like it's so rooted in like your connections and your attachment with like your caregivers. It's so crazy how times like try to
Hmm.
navigate that.
And I've done family based also. What a wonderful program that I have never seen replicated anywhere else. Like Pennsylvania has it together as far as that program. I learned so much from doing family therapy and getting those relational hours that you have to get as a marriage
Yeah.
and family therapist. Doing family-based work, I did that in Pittsburgh. I worked with a couple providers there. I think I did that for a total of probably about 7, maybe 7, 8 years doing family-based therapy. Yeah, it was a lot. I learned so much, and they say that experience is the best teacher. I learned so much from that because I was able to apply what I learned in my master's program to that work. Where did you do yours at? I'm just curious.
Unity Family Services in Leechburg, but I was all over.
Okay,
So
okay,
a bulk of
okay,
my
yeah.
caseload though was in Westmoreland County. So it was like all over there a lot. So I was in Greensburg all the time.
Yeah, I did Family Links first.
Oh,
I actually did
yeah.
my internship there, and just some great supervisors and practitioners there. Then the next one was Wesley Spectrum. I think that's what it is now.
So
Uh,
was that.
yeah. So, I mean, I learned so much. I learned so much from doing that work. And what was so it really makes me appreciate private practice after doing that because again, I mean, obviously you pay your dues doing family based, right? Because you're
Yes.
putting fires out, like it's heavy stuff,
So from that experience, like, what do you think was like your biggest takeaway from doing family based after doing your program?
Probably seeing that I can have an impact, right, on families, even though a lot of times it was a lot of like I really felt like a lot of times I was putting Band-Aids on because there was some heavy duty family system stuff going on there. I mean, because a lot of those kiddos, I mean, that was their last step before going institutionalized.
Yeah.
So I would say probably the biggest thing was seeing the families that I work with, not everybody progressing, but the ones that I guess some of the again, this is not a judgment, but some of those family systems were so toxic, right? So
Yeah.
it was really hard work. So the families that I was able to have at least the smallest amount of impact on and see them improve really kind of helped me springboard into doing my future work and like, I can really do this. I really like it, you know what I mean? And I can have an impact. So I was really happy doing that work. The traveling was what really hard. I mean, driving around Pittsburgh in rush hour traffic and trying to get through the tunnels and, make it from one client's house on one part of the city to the next, which was sometimes an hour away, sometimes with rush hour traffic and stuff was just a little insane.
Yes. I mean, I could imagine doing family based in Allegheny County, like, ugh, especially going into the city. I mean, my craziest thing was driving from the farthest end of Westmoreland County, which is in like Latrobe, and then driving
Yeah.
all the way to Butler County and going to like Carson City area in a day.
Mhm.
Trying to find,
Plus driving
yeah,
home after that. Times if you weren't done late, like you were right in the middle of traffic, rush hour traffic, at the tunnels, it was awful, right?
that
So it was sometimes an hour and a half home. So you weren't getting home till like 8 o'clock at night.
was a good day for me if I got home
Yeah.
by eight
Yeah.
o'clock.
That was a good day for sure. Sometimes it
Yeah.
was later.
So after you did family based, how long after that did you transition to private practice?
Well, there were some more steps in between there. I knew I wanted to do something different because I was really starting to get kind of burned out with community mental health. And I mean, it's definitely a wonderful thing. I'm so glad that we have it. I just knew I wanted to do something different,
Yeah.
and not have to work so hard and work smarter, not harder. And plus take the knowledge that I already had and carry it with me. So I wanted to do something closer to home. So I worked for a little practice in Connellsville, Pennsylvania called the Stern Center. So I, at that time, I was able to do some individual therapy with clients, but then they also have a wraparound program there, a BHRS program. And I said, I really didn't want to do that work, but I knew that I could do it and I enjoyed it. So I kind of did a dual role there, doing outpatient and then doing some in-home stuff at the same time. So, and then I knew that I definitely wanted to do outpatient and do more private practice, small agency kind of stuff.
Yeah. So do you still hold like, do you hold a license in Pennsylvania? Since I
I
figured you would.
don't I don't. Whenever I moved to Florida, I let it lapse and just, I don't think I think it kind of worked out whenever my license was up in Pennsylvania, the Florida license was kicking in. So no, but I don't have my license in Pennsylvania anymore. I was thinking about going back and getting it and just upping it again, renewing it, because it wouldn't be anything to do other than just pay the fee and get signed up again.
Yeah. Because I figured, like, with all your 7 years in family base, you hit all your licensure hours within less than 2 years, 'cause that's how it was for me too. I basically
Yeah.
hit mine super early because of how much you're working with family based.
Yeah. Well, that was kinda scary because unless you did family-based, it was really gonna be hard to get those relational hours in. Because I think 1,000 of those hours had to be relational hours. Plus, at that point, I had to take care of myself, so I needed to find a job that I could get paid at.
Right.
The unpaid work was not gonna cut it because I still needed to pay the bills too at the same time, so family-based was a good option to do because then I can get paid at the same time, like a paid internship experience, you know? So
Yeah, that's what I did. That's how I did mine too. Because whenever I went to grad school, I was already married and, like, I can't have an unpaid internship because, like, I had to help
right,
support my
right,
husband and I.
right,
So, yeah,
right.
that's what I did too. I told all my classmates in my grad program, like, "Try to find a community mental health program that you can get into to get your internship
Mhm,
hours at, where you can actually have a job and get paid." I
mhm.
only have most of them that did unpaid. More power to you. That I couldn't do
Yeah,
that.
there was quite a number of folks that chose to do that did not wanna do community mental health that went into private practice, but it took them a lot longer to get their relational hours, I nailed those knocked those hours out, in like 2 years, like you said, because I wanted to get licensed. I was ready to go for sure.
Especially since you were a little bit later in your career when you got your master's, which is totally cool. Like, I always love seeing people go back and, like, do something new and then just have it
Mhm.
expand because you have so much life experience too, like, just having your music degree. I'm sure you probably incorporate some music stuff in your work with your clients currently, right?
I do. And I had thought about doing music therapy too, but then I'm like, I think music therapy is a really, really good thing. But I mean, the reality of it is starting out and doing private practice, if you want to just do music therapy, obviously we have to, a lot of times we take insurances, right? And insurance
Yeah.
companies do not want to pay for music therapy. So I'm like, I need to do something a little bit more viable and I could incorporate my music therapy in there or do music in a therapeutic way and with my practice, you know what I mean? And I certainly have in the past. I've kind of gotten away from that a little bit.
Well, with your current, like, flow client or, like, your niche, like, who do you feel like would be, like, the best person you could do music therapy with?
Probably my folks that are on the autism spectrum. If I could, like, really slim that down to my niche, probably that population for sure. It's
So
because
it's
there's such a strong therapeutic component around that population for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, definitely. 'Cause, like, this their sensory and their perceptions of
Yep.
things, like, music is so helpful for them.
Mhm.
So what do you think
And yeah, go
no,
ahead, I'm sorry.
so as it's, like, what brought you to, like, having, like, autism as, like, one of your, like, your niche things that you focus
Well
on?
well, I would certainly say this goes back to my origins back when I did group homework.
Yeah.
Like, I just fell in love with that population just because the neurodivergent mindset and how their minds work, right? I just kind of fell in love with it, with working with them because it was the intrigue and the curiosity about wanting to learn more about them
Yeah,
and how they functioned and how they worked. And then also I did a lot of behavioral work around that too. And I just fell in love with that population and working with them, you know?
yeah. And it does take a, like, a special person to, like, really understand the population, like, really niche into it. I've done some work with people in that population as well, and, like, that's super interesting, and I love them, and, like, they're cool to work with, but for me, it's the way my brain works. I'm like, I mean, I'll handle, like, neurospiciness, but it's not, like, what I want to do all the time, you know?
Right, right,
It's just
right,
my brain doesn't work that way. It's hard for me to always
right,
understand, like, where they're coming from. But, like,
right.
if you understand, like, more power to you because they definitely need people that understand them and really
Mhm,
wanna help them.
mhm. And I have a mild case of attention deficit, so I can relate on that level. So, and the other thing is too, is that what brought me to want to do more with parents, right? Because they are such a huge factor in all this, right?
Oh, definitely.
Um, is that I just, I work with some really, really good parents, right? Some really exceptional parents that 150% advocated for their son or daughter. And some parents like went single breadwinner households, and the other one went total 100% to advocate for their son or their daughter. So, which is amazing to me, like the sacrifice. And back in those days, we do not have the what's the word I'm looking for? Put it this way, parents really had to fight for rights back then
Yeah.
in regards to their kiddos diagnosed with autism, right? So and that was huge in Pennsylvania. Actually, I think Pennsylvania was one of the first states that, like, I think Blue Cross Blue Shield was like was the first insurance company to cover autism services. Like there, because we had such a huge advocate program, like parents advocating, and we had lobbyists working for those parents in Pennsylvania. So like we want our autism services paid for with medical insurance, right? Why can't that be paid? Why can't that be covered? Working with those families that again had a passion to see their kids succeed in life. I mean, that really inspired me to want to learn more and to like, you know what, these folks work so hard. I want to be able to help folks through that because there's a lot on their shoulders for sure.
Oh,
So,
definitely. And it's interesting that you say that about Pennsylvania being one of the first, because I talked to people in other states, and I just mentioned, like, autism services or, like, things for, like, their kids that have these diagnoses, and they look at me like I had, like, 3 heads, like, "What are you talking about?"
yep.
'Cause I haven't lived outside of Pennsylvania. I mean, I've visited other states, but I've never lived outside of Pennsylvania, so I don't know what every state has, you know? So it's just
Mhm,
interesting how some states don't even
mhm,
have those connections for kids.
mhm. Yeah, and it's gotten so much better, but there's still more work we need to do. Like when I moved to Florida back in 2015, I was kind of shocked at kind of behind the times Florida was in regards to providing services to that population and to special needs in general. Like even, I mean, there was waiting lists in Pennsylvania, obviously, right? But
Yeah.
the waiting lists in Florida was really long for a lot of folks. And again, that led to a lot of folks being underserved
Oh, definitely.
and also finding practitioners that knew about special needs and autism specifically, right? And ADHD, neurodivergence, and also the school districts also too that were really not equipped. So like when I moved to Florida, I started seeing which was unheard of really a lot of times in Pennsylvania was clients getting diagnosed later in life because they kind of slipped through the cracks at school. You know what I mean? So a lot of clients getting diagnosed sometimes in their 20s, 30s, and 40s in Florida, and then coming to me and like a lot of times they come in and they feel like their whole lives are shattered because like I wish I'd have known this back 20, 30 years ago when I was in school, but you know, it just didn't happen for them. They kind of fell through the cracks.
Just it's so heartbreaking too because they feel like a lot of internal shame and guilt that they
Mhm.
couldn't meet these expectations whenever there was no way they could, just because of the nature of their brain, which is like nothing wrong with them, just like
Right.
the system failed them, which is
Mhm.
just heartbreaking.
Right. And that's what led me into kind of doing more trauma work with them because, you know, I found that a lot of folks with that diagnosis experience some level of trauma because, again, it's almost like another layer, you know, with someone that's diagnosed with autism or ADHD, because again, I mean, they kind of obviously they stand out more, right? And they're kind of like they have a target on them, right? A lot of times these kids are bullied, they're misunderstood. Sometimes they have parents that don't understand them, and the parents are trying to do the best they can. And there's some trauma around family system work.
Oh yeah,
So I found that incorporating my trauma work in with that was really a good thing. And then I started doing EMDR therapy in with that. And so I saw a lot of success with clients with those diagnoses doing EMDR therapy. And again, they process in a very unique way, which is pretty intriguing, you know.
so I've finished my EMDR certification. Actually, I had all the training. I finally finished the trainings for it like last week. So I finally fully EMDR
Oh,
certified
great.
myself. But what modifications or like things do you do differently when you're working with your people with autism and whenever they're kids too? Because like even with kids, like have like you have to modify a little bit for them, and then you have
Mhm.
to add like the other autism layer. So how do you do it?
Well, it's a little bit different. I mean, obviously, I have to incorporate the uniqueness of all my clients with that diagnosis. So I really kind of have to meet them where they're at. So oftentimes with again, depending on the level of autism, so sometimes folks that have more sensitivities around like the bilateral stimulation, like the folks that are maybe lower level functioning autism that maybe have a lot of eye stimulation kind of things going on, visual stimulation. I have to really do some modification around that because I can't go at, you know, sometimes the pace I want to go with the bilateral stimulation for the processing with them because it's sensory overload. So a lot of times it's doing shorter sets of EMDR when we're processing and less, and the speed's usually down a little bit because there's a hypersensitivity to that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's probably the main thing I would say is that I just need to really do some adaptations around the speed and the sets that I do with them, right?
So do you do more like auditory then if like their eyes?
I usually do most of the time if they respond better with more auditory stimulation. And when I was in person, I would do a lot of tactile stimulation with that too, with the pulsars, but the visual stuff sometimes just was not a good fit for folks that were on the autism spectrum for sure, you know?
Yeah. I can see, like, 'cause I feel like it's just, like, too much, like, even if they have them, like, do their over shoulder taps, like, that could be too much too, because they're seeing you tap your shoulders, they're tapping themselves, it's, like,
Mhm,
all of it going together.
mhm. And the processing's a little bit different too, because again, sometimes it could be very, very oftentimes, again, with folks on the autism spectrum, they maybe have a hard time understanding their emotions or identifying their emotions, right? So we
Right.
both know that with EMDR, you need to stay in your emotions when you're processing. So a lot of times I'm finding myself maybe doing some recalibration of emotions for folks in that with that diagnosis as well. Because again, with processing, what comes up is a lot of times it's concrete things, right? It's
Right.
very much regimented in the memory of what happened from point A to point B. And then when you pick up again, what happened from B to point C. So it's trying to get them to be free with it and not be so concrete with it and just have flow with it and experience, try to get them more in the zone of experiencing emotions when they're processing can be a challenge sometimes
That's
for
very
sure.
true. But I think too, like, even if they have, like, extensive trauma histories, it can be really challenging just for them to be comfortable recognizing their emotions or, like, even going there because it doesn't feel safe, which is also the biggest piece with trauma, is that having people feel safe enough to go there. It's like, how often do you usually spend resourcing with them?
It usually takes some time, right? Because what happens is that we do a lot of timeline, we do a lot of history, right? Because a lot of times that's part of them feeling comfortable is they need to share their story.
Right.
You know what I mean? So oftentimes it's every licking detail of the story. And I'm like, you tell your story, like even though I may say, just give me the nuts and bolts of it, right? Well, it usually doesn't happen that way. They tell me the whole thing, which is fine. If that makes them more comfortable to start processing, then let's hear the whole story, every bit and piece of it. So for sure.
That's for me, like, the hardest part too, I learned EMDR is like, oh, they don't need to
Yeah.
say the whole story, they can still clear it out, which means, like, is great because like, I do have a lot of people in my life, and as clients too, that they don't want to talk about the whole story, they just wanna clear it out. So that's, like, the
Right.
nice piece with EMDR is, like, you don't have to say the whole story, but if you want to, you can.
Mhm. No, I've never, I mean, not all of them are like that. There may be some around social and like speaking and not feeling comfortable. There may be more shy. So some will they love the idea that they could just share a little piece of it and they don't have to talk about it. But most want to share the whole story. That's what I find kind of endearing about that population. They're very factual for the most part. They're not going to lie to you. They're not going to give you a lot of crap. They're going to tell you everything you need to know.
Oh, true.
You know.
Yeah, and they will let you know if they're upset with you, they will tell you
Yeah,
why.
for sure. For sure. I 100% appreciate the transparency, 100%.
Yeah.
And that I know exactly where they stand. Like there's no playing guessing games here. They're gonna tell you.
And yeah, that is very true. It's very refreshing because like other people like that have like the social cues, like, well, you're my therapist. I don't want you to be mad at me. I'm like, I'm not gonna be mad at you if you tell me your emotion. Like that's what I'm here for. Like I am here for you to actually get into your emotions. I've had to tell a lot of like my older adult clients that about that because like their whole lives are like, well, we can't say how we feel, especially the men that I'm with.
Yep,
I need to know so they can help you get out of these patterns.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I find that too with the men I work with too,
Yeah.
sure.
But you mentioned about bringing in their parents, and then I think you talked about doing, like, this new parenting program too. What's that?
Yes. So it's a requirement that parents are involved with their kiddos when we're doing therapy. Now, obviously, it depends upon the age, right? My teenagers, it depends on the kid. More often, sometimes they don't want to disclose if they know I'm talking to their parents, right? So, it's kind of like it's figuring out what best serves them. Most of my younger kids, it's a non-negotiable. Parents are pulled in, usually for part of the session, about every session, right? To give an update, because oftentimes the kids aren't telling you everything that's going on, right? So I bring parents in and we do parenting sessions also. If I'm seeing a client every week, I'll pull them in at least once a month to do a full session. But we really try to keep it focused because sometimes if you don't bring the parents in, it can kind of veer off and you get some surprises, from parents like, well, they did tell you about this. I'm trying to scale my work some more. This is part of the whole, being in a solo private practice. And I like the idea of working on my own and not working with anybody. It's a lot less headache that way.
Very true.
And I like being the captain of my own ship here. So I'm trying to scale my work to where I'm working smarter, not harder. So I'm trying to get into consulting because, the whole thing with, well, if you're a therapist, how are you doing coaching and all that stuff, right? So yes, I'm hoping that beginning of the first of next year, I'm able to get my parenting program launched. So it's going to be a scalable group parenting consulting coaching, if you will, program. And it's going to be pretty all inclusive to where, again, it's very much like a cohort, but it's not a cohort, right? So it's going to be cohort like, but we're going to be doing like weekly coaching sessions. And it's all really kind of self paced, self driven to where they have all the materials at their disposal. And it's called the Empowered Parent Blueprint.
I
It
love that.
it covers thank you. And it covers 4 specific components. It covers structure, it covers advocacy, it covers empowerment, and what's the 4th one? I'm having one of those moments. I forget what the 4th one is, but again, there's 4 pieces to it. So,
Yeah.
the model is you need all 4 of these pieces to be able to be, again, essentially be a successful parent. So, I'm hoping to start doing that next year, and I think I like the idea of being able to work with a bunch of people at the same time, and it's more of a higher ticket offer and more for an extended period of time. I haven't decided on how long I want to do it yet. Probably at least 6 months, I would say. And I like how it's more like a self-driven, parents doing their own work behind the scenes, and then they bring their stuff to me and I coach them on it. And then there's also a community in regards to that too. So where other parents could lean on other parents to get coached on their situations, on how they handle situations.
So like you're giving them the nuts and bolts toolkit essentially, and then they're getting like the support from their essentially their classmates, learning the things together. Like, well, I use this tool in this way, and it helped me with this, and then they can also like share their stories and like, their successes. That's so cool.
hmm So I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm hoping that I can get that, going, next year. And again, it's my pet project. So I'm hoping that I can get that going.
Yeah. Are you thinking about having like a limit to how many people are going to be in each cohort?
Yeah. I mean, I really haven't thought about that too much because I'm all about the more the merrier, right? So the one thing that I like unique about it is there's really with more of the cohort is more of a starting and a stopping, right? So with how I want to do this program is that people are going to be leaving and coming aboard at the same time. So there's going to be folks coming in at different levels. So what I think is really cool about that is that the folks that have been there for a while, they can help teach the parents through their experiences, I guess, be the poster parents for you can do this, so to speak. So it's going to be like a rolling enrollment kind of thing, you know,
Okay.
which is really, really cool. I
Yeah,
like
that's a
that
little.
piece of it.
That sounds super cool. I like that too. Like, as people like have learned things on themselves, like, need to come in, like, okay, so that they can get like caught up essentially, and like also like ask for help from you and from them. So it's like not just like the burden of helping is not fully on you. You have the support of the other people that you've taught, which is really cool.
Right. And I'm going to be offering some bonuses and stuff too. So there's going to be some specific tiers to it. And it's all about the marketing piece of it. If folks commit to it, they get some perks. They get some one-on-one consulting with me, which is a cool component to add to that.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to be, I'm just so excited about it, doing something different.
Yeah, that's super
Uh,
exciting.
Thanks.
David, this has been amazing. And I love hearing all the things that you've been working on and how you've gotten to where you are. And like, I love the music piece too, which is so cool. Cause like, I don't know, like the creative mindset is like, I think great in the therapy world. It's just so cool. How do you prefer people to find you and like work with you?
Probably the main thing would be everything kind of gets filtered through my website. So it's www.davidmartinlmft.com. And they can reach out on there. There's a chat feature on there. They can chat me directly on there. They could send me an email directly from the website. They can ask questions. They can schedule automatically on my website for a free 20 to 30-minute consultation. So they can do that. I often find that doing that is really great. It kind of attracts more clients that way. So probably my website would be the best way to get me. I also have a YouTube channel that I started back in May, and that's kind of my baby project going on at the same time to draw traffic to my practice and everything. And I'm doing a lot of work around neurodivergence on there. And I branched off doing over the past few weeks around betrayal trauma because I'm finding that is a pretty popular niche. And I'm trying to niche that up a little bit because I think there's such a need for it. So I'm hoping that my goal is to do another coaching program, consulting program after I do the parenting one around that and I'm trying to figure out if I want to work with just men and really niche it up and just focus on men that have gone through betrayal trauma because I've gone through that myself with my marriage. So, me and my trauma work and all that work I've done around trauma and plus my own experiences with it, I really do think that I could help a lot of folks with that. I'm kind of thinking I want to focus more in on men because it
Yeah.
might be good to niche it up and work with men specifically. But yeah, I'm excited about that too and kind of breaking out and doing that also. And then also too, just as another side thing too, is I'm trying to do some more work around the area I live at in Florida, in North Florida in Jacksonville. I'm really working in an area that's underserved, and I'm finding that there's no therapists over here. A lot of times folks are having a hard time putting meals on the table. So I'm finding that through my church and through some other friends that have some nonprofit organizations in the area, that there's a need for this. So I think I'm going to go back and do some part-time brick and mortar work and maybe potentially down the road, maybe do a nonprofit. I mean, we know that's where the grant money's at. So I can work with these folks that
Yeah.
are underserved that don't have the resources. So there's such a need for it. It really, really is, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's so amazing. Like if you could like help
Thank
those
you.
people because I definitely need it. Like your heart is just like so big and you just like want to feel like
Thank
you're just
you.
trying to help everyone, which is amazing. Just so you guys know, his YouTube channel, which is amazing, he has like all the fun videos, is active Martin underscore psychotherapist. So definitely follow him. But all of his links will be in the description below the video. So feel free to follow him and get some more information on him because David is amazing. So if you're in Florida, big plug for David. Like go find him and get the help that you need.
And with the coaching, it could be outside of or I should I say consulting can be outside of the state.
That's very true.
So, but yeah, I'm licensed in Florida. So right now, if you're interested, if you're in Florida, I know we get a lot of these northerner peeps that come down to Florida because we have the snowbirds down here and people that come back and forth. So
Very true. The snowbirds are a real thing, especially people
yeah,
that RV. People RV
yeah,
around nowadays too.
yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.